What happened when an undercover CEO discovered the truth about his own company? Hey there, brilliant listeners. You've got a sharp eye for powerful stories, and today's one will leave a mark. Join us as we follow Michael Tran, the CEO of a booming delivery startup who disguises himself as a regular driver to uncover the truth behind the numbers. What he finds isn't just inefficiency, it's injustice, long hours, low pay, and silent struggles. But this isn't just about observation, it's about transformation. Buckle up for a story where compassion meets courage, and one decision changes everything from the ground up. Michael Tran stood outside the Go Wagon distribution center just before dawn, dressed in the same faded gray uniform as every other delivery driver reporting for the morning shift. No one recognized him as the CEO of the company. He had traded in his tailored suits and corner office for steel-toe boots and a company-issued badge that read Mike T. It was his first day on the job, not as an executive, but as a driver in his own company. He had made the decision quietly, troubled by a growing sense that the numbers on his quarterly reports weren't telling the full story. The company was thriving on paper, expanding nationwide, breaking delivery records, but something felt off. Complaints had trickled in about app glitches, long hours, and shrinking pay, but Michael's leadership team had dismissed them as outliers. Now, he wanted to see the truth for himself. Inside the warehouse, the air buzzed with noise. Forklifts beeped, clipboards shuffled, and drivers chatted in low, tired voices. A supervisor barely glanced at Michael before handing him a scanner and a printed manifest. "You're on Route 4B, the man muttered, already turning to the next name on his list. Michael was directed to an aging van near the edge of the lot, its side panel rusted and tires balding. He climbed in, surprised by the clutter and faint smell of coffee and motor oil. As he started the ignition, another driver knocked on the window. "New guy?" the man asked with a knowing smirk. He introduced himself as Luis, a veteran with dark circles under his eyes and the weary energy of someone who had been doing this too long. "Hope you brought snacks and back pain meds. This ain't as easy as it looks." Michael forced a smile but said little. He was already absorbing everything, the casual fatigue in people's voices, the absence of training, the way drivers were handed 30 stops with no discussion of safety, brakes, or real support. He followed the GPS out of the lot and into the city, heart pounding. He'd built Go Wagon on promises of freedom and flexibility, but in this van, with the weight of packages and expectations pressing down, he was starting to see the crack. This wasn't just a company anymore, it was a machine. And he had become a stranger to how it really worked. By 7:15 a.m., Michael was already behind schedule. The delivery app on his phone kept glitching, freezing between stops, while his manifest listed addresses from all corners of Atlanta's sprawl. His first few deliveries were simple enough, front porches, apartment lobbies, but by stop 5, the stress was setting in. At one building, he circled twice before realizing there was no legal parking within 2 blocks. He jogged uphill with a 40-pound package, only to find the call box broken. After 20 minutes and 3 unanswered phone calls, he left the box with a neighbor. Back in the van, sweat clung to his back and his knees ached. The schedule didn't slow down. The app buzzed constantly. New routes, priority deliveries, a high-efficiency reroute that only added to his confusion. By mid-morning, traffic thickened, and Michael found himself stuck behind a stalled truck on Peachtree Street with his coffee long gone cold and his stomach gnawing with hunger. At a gas station, he finally pulled over, grabbing a microwave sandwich and a bottle of water. The small parking lot was littered with other Go Wagon vans, drivers slumped over their steering wheels or hunched over phones. No one looked rested. Some were tapping at their screens, likely trying to contact customer support or reschedule missed drop-offs. Michael watched a young woman rub her temples before taking a deep breath and pulling back onto the road. He recognized the same thing in her eyes that was beginning to take root in his: burnout. Back in his own van, he took a minute to check his earnings. After more than 4 hours, he'd made just under $40 before fuel costs. It hit him harder than he expected. The real sting wasn't just the physical exhaustion, it was the invisibility. Every door he knocked on opened with a distracted face or none at all. No one looked at him. No one asked how his day was going. To them, he was just the delivery guy, interchangeable, invisible. And for the first time, Michael truly felt what it meant to be treated like part of the machine. He had come to learn, but what he was feeling now wasn't data. It was disillusionment. He was only getting started, and already the weight of the system he'd built was pressing down on him from every direction. The sun was just beginning to set when Michael returned to the distribution center to drop off undelivered packages and report a minor van issue. His legs ached from the constant climbing in and out, and his lower back throbbed with each step. As he crossed the lot, he spotted Luis Romero again, leaning against his van, sipping from a large plastic cup and scrolling through his phone. Michael hesitated before approaching, then figured now was as good a time as any to talk. Luis looked up and offered a tired nod. "You made it through day one. Congrats. Most rookies tap out after their first reroute meltdown." Michael managed a dry chuckle and admitted he had, in fact, gotten stuck in a construction detour for nearly an hour. Luis grinned and offered him a seat on the edge of his van's bumper. They sat in silence for a few moments before Michael asked, "You been doing this long?" Luis exhaled, stretching his arms overhead. "Almost 3 years. Started after my mechanic shop shut down. Thought it'd be temporary, but here I am." He nodded toward the inside of the van, where Michael spotted a folded blanket, a pillow, and an old duffel bag. "Sometimes I just sleep back here, saves on gas. Plus, no point driving home when I'm back here before sunrise." Michael tried to hide his reaction, but the shock settled in his gut like a brick. "You sleep here? In the van?" Luis shrugged. "Not every night, just most. Rent's gone up, tips are down, and the app doesn't care how tired you are. You take the next order or you fall behind on bills. Simple math." Michael listened closely, absorbing every word. Luis's voice was calm, but behind it was a lifetime of resignation and quiet exhaustion. He spoke of missed family gatherings, skipped meals, knee pain that never went away. "This job, it's not just driving, it's the pressure, the constant push. You get emails about bonuses, but they're traps. You chase them and burn out faster." Michael didn't know what to say. This wasn't some rare extreme case. Luis represented a growing majority of his workforce, people who had once dreamed of flexibility and freedom, only to end up sleeping in parking lots to afford groceries. As night fully settled over the warehouse lot, Luis tossed his cup into a nearby bin and stood up. "Anyway, welcome to the grind. Hope you brought caffeine." He gave Michael a quick salute before sliding into the back of his van. Michael stood there for a long time, staring at the closed doors, realizing for the first time just how far removed he had been from the lives his company was built on. The next morning, Michael was assigned a double route due to staffing shortages, and dispatch paired him with another driver to split the load. That's how he met Tasha Green, a tall, sharp-eyed woman in her early 30s with a braided bun and a no-nonsense attitude that immediately commanded respect. She climbed into the passenger seat of his van with a tired smile and a thermos of coffee. "Hope you don't mind company," she said, buckling in. "I've done this stretch before. Gets nasty with school zones after 10. Michael welcomed the help. As they rolled out of the lot, he noticed her Go-Wagon jacket was worn thin at the elbows, her hands calloused and rough. She handled the scanner like second nature, calling out stops before the GPS could even catch up. As the morning wore on, they began to talk. At first, it was surface level. Traffic, app glitches, best shortcuts. But soon it turned more personal. Tasha shared that she used to work in one of Go-Wagon's regional warehouses as a shift lead. 4 years I gave that place, she said. Did everything right, but when I slipped on a loading dock and messed up my back, all I got was a thanks and goodbye. No light duty, no severance, just a pink slip. Michael kept his face neutral, though her words stung. "So I started driving," she continued, "figured at least here I could control my hours, be there for my kid. But you know how that turned out." Michael asked about her son, and her face softened. "He's 7, stays with my sister most of the time now. I leave before he wakes up and get back after he's asleep. Some days I don't even see him. I thought this job would give me time. Instead, I'm running deliveries for 12 hours and still coming up short." Her voice caught slightly and she cleared her throat. "But I keep going. What choice do I have?" During one stop, Tasha waved to an elderly woman on a porch and helped carry a heavy box up a flight of steps. Michael watched how patient and kind she was, even with exhaustion written across her face. Back in the van, she rubbed her lower back and let out a sigh. "I don't mind hard work," she said, "but I didn't think I'd have to choose between seeing my son and paying rent." Her words stayed with Michael long after they parted ways that afternoon. In Tasha, he saw a mother, a leader, a former employee discarded by a system that valued output over people, and he realized with growing certainty that something had gone deeply wrong. Later that week, after a long haul of residential stops in the suburbs, Michael's final delivery took him to a quiet, well-kept duplex tucked behind a row of pecan trees. As he approached the front porch with a small medical supply package in hand, the door creaked open, and an older man stepped out with a practiced smile. "You're early," he said, accepting the box. His voice was raspy but warm. "Name's Elliot. You must be new. Haven't seen you on this route before." Michael nodded and introduced himself, surprised when Elliot added, "I drive for Go Wagon too. Usually afternoons. This order's for me, though." One of those awkward ironies, huh? Michael raised an eyebrow. "You deliver and order medical supplies from the same company?" Elliot chuckled. "Yeah. Ain't life poetic?" They sat on the porch for a moment as Elliot poured Michael a paper cup of iced tea, motioning for him to take a break. The man was in his mid-60s, with salt and pepper hair, a veteran's posture, and a faint limp. He explained that after retiring from the Air Force, he thought his pension and savings would be enough. "But inflation had other plans," he said. "Now I deliver packages to cover prescriptions and utilities. Never thought I'd be scanning barcodes at my age, but here we are." He didn't complain as much as he stated the facts, like a man too used to survival to waste energy on anger. Michael asked how long he worked each week. 5, sometimes 6 days, about 6 hours a day. Gotta pace myself, these knees ain't what they used to be. He smiled again, but there was sadness underneath it. "The hardest part? Not the lifting or the miles. It's knowing I traded in my golden years for a steering wheel and a deadline." Before leaving, Michael offered a respectful handshake. "Thank you for your service," he said. Elliot gave a tired grin. "And thank you for the package. Maybe next time I'll be handing one to you." Driving away, Michael couldn't shake the image of Elliot's stoic face and slowly walked back inside. This wasn't a one-off story. It was another piece of a broken puzzle. Retirees are forced back into work, not by ambition, but necessity. The kind of sacrifice that no spreadsheet could ever account for. And the more he saw, the more certain he became. Go Wagon needed a reckoning. By the end of the week, Michael was running on fumes, mentally, physically, emotionally. His body ached in places he hadn't felt in years, his lower back stiff from the hours behind the wheel, and his hands blistered from the constant loading and unloading of packages. That Friday, a glitch in the delivery app rerouted him through Atlanta's chaotic midday traffic, costing him nearly an hour and pushing him further behind schedule. When he finally reached his last stop, a multi-story office building downtown, the delivery elevator was broken, forcing him to lug 5 bulky boxes up 4 flights of stairs. By the time he returned to the van, sweat soaked through his shirt and his legs trembled with exhaustion. He checked the app, $86 earned for nearly 14 hours of work, and that was before deducting gas. His fuel light had been on for 2 stops already. As he pulled out of the delivery zone, the van shuddered and then stalled. Michael cursed under his breath. The engine sputtered once, then died completely. He coasted to the side of the road and flipped on his hazards. He tried calling dispatch, but after 5 minutes on hold, he got a canned response. "Please contact your local mechanic partner or roadside services." No help, no support, no sense of urgency. He stared at the phone screen for a long moment, then tossed it onto the passenger seat and leaned back, pressing his fingers to his eyes. The van was quiet, except for the occasional honk from passing traffic. The weight of the week, of everything he'd seen and felt, pressed down on him all at once. Tasha's tired eyes, Elliot's quiet resolve, Louise sleeping in the back of his van. All of it looped in his head like a chorus of warnings. This wasn't the flexible, empowering system he had dreamed of creating. It wasn't innovation, it was exploitation dressed up in efficiency. Michael stared out the windshield at the stream of cars rushing by, commuters, couriers, lives in motion. But for him, at that moment, everything had stopped. He realized with crystal clarity that the company he'd built had grown too far from the people it depended on. Somewhere along the way, metrics and margins had become more important than human lives. This was no longer a trial run or a leadership exercise. It was a moral turning point. Gripping the steering wheel, he whispered aloud, "No more observing. It's time to fix this." And in that quiet, broken-down van on the edge of the road, Michael Tran made a silent vow. When he returned to Go Wagon headquarters, he would return with purpose, and everything would change. 3 days later, Michael Tran walked into the sleek glass tower that housed Go Wagon's corporate headquarters, a far cry from the scuffed vans and cracked pavement he'd spent the last week navigating. His suit felt unfamiliar, almost like a costume. As he stepped into the boardroom, the senior leadership team looked up, surprised to see him back early and unannounced. Dana Wu, head of operations, offered a polite smile. "Welcome back, Michael. How was the trip?" Jerome Bell, the CFO, didn't look up from his tablet. "Hope you got some rest." Michael took his seat at the head of the table, folding his hands. "It wasn't a trip," he said flatly. "I've been driving routes, same as any contractor." The room fell silent. "You mean you were actually out there?" Dana asked slowly. "With the drivers?" Michael nodded. "For a full week. Warehouse to front door, app glitches, parking tickets, broken elevators, all of it." Jerome leaned back, skeptical. "And what exactly did you hope to find?" Michael's voice sharpened. "The truth, and I found it." He opened a folder and spread out a series of photos, pay breakdowns, fuel receipts, and notes from conversations he'd had with drivers like Luis, Tasha, and Elliot. They're working 12 to 14 hours a day for less than minimum wage after expenses. Some are sleeping in vans, others are choosing between food and fuel, and we're calling it flexibility. Dana frowned. "We've always paid at competitive rates. The numbers don't lie." Michael cut in. "The numbers lie when you don't look past them. We've created a system that rewards burnout and punishes people for needing rest. That's not sustainable. That's not humane." Jerome scoffed. "It's the gig economy. You can't overhaul an entire industry." Michael stared at him. "Watch me." A thick silence hung in the room as the weight of his words settled. No one had expected this, not from him, but the man sitting before them wasn't the same CEO who'd left. This was someone who had listened, witnessed, and carried the burden of his company's failures, and he was done with business as usual. The clash had only begun, but the tide was already turning. Michael stood at the front of the boardroom, hands braced on the long conference table, as he looked each executive in the eye. The silence after his declaration had stretched long enough. "Here's what's going to happen," he said firmly. "Effective next quarter, driver earnings will increase across the board. Go Wagon will reduce its commission on every delivery to ensure drivers keep a larger portion of each fare. No more hidden deductions, no more misleading incentive trap." Jerome shook his head, already pulling up numbers on his tablet. "That's going to gut our margins. Investors will revolt." Michael didn't flinch. "We've built this company on the backs of people we've ignored. If that costs us short-term profits, so be it. We're not scaling suffering anymore." Dana leaned forward cautiously. "You're serious about this? Cutting into revenue to give drivers more?" Michael nodded. "That's just the beginning. I'm also launching a national driver wellness initiative. Real support systems, not just lip service. Designated rest hubs in major cities. Places where drivers can safely park, eat, rest, and recharge, physically and emotionally." He tapped the folder in front of him. "The data backs it up. Driver fatigue is killing efficiency. We'll gain it back through retention and fewer breakdowns, literal and mental." Across the room, some executives looked wary, others quietly intrigued. Michael continued, "We're also forming a driver advisory board made up of elected representatives from our contractor base. They'll meet quarterly with us, review app updates, bonus structures, and flag issues before they spiral. No more designing policies in a vacuum." Jerome scoffed. "You're handing over the reins to gig workers?" Michael's voice sharpened. "No. I'm building a company that treats its people with dignity, because without them, we're nothing but an app and a logo. They're the ones who make Go Wagon real." The room was tense, but no one could deny the clarity in his voice. These weren't half measures or PR plays. They were structural changes born from a week in the driver's seat. Literally. Dana sat back, arms crossed but thoughtful. If we do this, it's going to be messy, costly, disruptive. Michael nodded. Change always is, but if we don't, this company will collapse under the weight of its own hypocrisy. For a moment, no one spoke. Then slowly, Dana gave a quiet nod. Others followed, reluctantly, skeptically, but they followed. Michael exhaled. The plan wasn't perfect, but it was a beginning, a shift from silence to action, from convenience to conscience. The story of the warehouse route teaches a powerful lesson about leadership, empathy, and accountability. Michael Tran began as a CEO disconnected from the realities of his workforce, relying on spreadsheets and boardroom metrics to shape decisions. But once he stepped into the shoes of his delivery drivers, he discovered a harsh truth. The systems he thought were efficient were, in fact, dehumanizing. By experiencing their exhaustion, sacrifices, and quiet dignity firsthand, Michael learned that real leadership means listening, not just managing. It means putting people before profit and recognizing that sustainability isn't just about financial models, it's about moral responsibility. The story reminds us that no company thrives without the labor of those at the foundation. When workers are treated as disposable, systems collapse from within. True innovation requires courage to change what's broken and build something better, not just for shareholders, but for everyone involved. Michael's journey underscores that change doesn't begin in spreadsheets, it begins in understanding. The most valuable insight a leader can gain isn't from a quarterly report, but from sitting beside the very people the company depends on and asking, "What do you need?" Then, most importantly, listening and acting.